Welcome to another peaceful journey through the corridors of time, dear friend. Before we begin tonight's exploration into the daily life of one of history's most magnificent warriors, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you find solace and understanding in these historical bedtime stories, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. It helps more people discover these gentle adventures through time, and it lets me know you're enjoying our nighttime wanderings through the tapestry of human history. Now settle in comfortably as we drift back to the year 1683, to the camp of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, where the morning mist rises from the fields outside Vienna, and the fate of Christian Europe hangs in the balance. Tonight, I invite you to live a day through the eyes of Stanisław Kowalski, a Polish Winged Hussar, a Towarzys of noble blood, whose wings cast shadows of both beauty and terror across the battlefields of the 17th century. Close your eyes and let yourself become this proud warrior, feeling the weight of your armor, the power of your Destrier beneath you, and the sacred duty that courses through your veins like liquid fire. The first light of dawn breaks through the canvas of my tent, and I feel the familiar ache in my bones that comes from sleeping on campaign. It is September 11th, 1683, and tomorrow we shall ride to relieve the great city of Vienna from the Ottoman siege that has gripped it like the talons of a great eagle. But today, there's preparation, prayer, and the endless rituals that make a hussar more than merely a man on horseback. I rise before the trumpet sound, as is my custom. The pre-dawn hours belong to God and to reflection, and I have learned that a warrior who does not commune with the Almighty before battle often finds himself communing with death instead. My squire, young Piotr, still sleeps on his bedroll near the tent entrance, his hand instinctively resting on the hilt of his saber, even in slumber. He is barely 16, but already shows the bearing of a future hussar, if God wills it, and he survives the trials ahead. Kneeling on my camp rug, I begin my morning prayers as my father taught me, and his father before him. Poch mi wysisi dustajenki, I whisper, the ancient Polish words flowing like honey from my lips. But this morning, my prayers turn to Our Lady of Częstochowa, the Black Madonna who watches over all Polish warriors. Holy Mother of Częstochowa, thou art full of grace, goodness and mercy. I consecrate to thee all my thoughts, words and actions, my soul and body. Today I consecrate myself to thee, good Mother, totally with body and soul amid joy and sufferings, to obtain for myself and others thy blessings on this earth and eternal life in heaven. The weight of devotion settles upon my shoulders like a comfortable cloak. In these moments of prayer, I feel the presence of my ancestors, the great warriors who rode these same plains centuries before. Back to the time when Polish lances first gleamed in the morning sun, the Hussar tradition flows in my blood like a sacred river, connecting me to heroes whose names echo in the halls of eternity. As the camp begins to stir around me, I hear the familiar sounds of an army awakening. The snorting and stamping of horses, the clatter of equipment being prepared, the low murmur of men's voices carrying through the morning air. Someone is already building up the cooking fires, and the scent of burning wood mingles with the earthy smell of leather and steel that permeates every military camp. Piotr awakens at my movement and immediately begins his duties without need for instruction. A good squire anticipates his master's needs, and Piotr has learned well in the 2 years since he entered my service. His father was a szlachta from Kraków who died fighting the Turks at Szokim, and I have taken the boy under my protection as much from duty as from affection. In him, I see the future of our brotherhood. The morning inspection of my equipment is a ritual as sacred as prayer itself. My life, and the lives of my comrades, depend upon every piece of gear functioning perfectly when the moment of battle arrives. Piotr brings my armor piece by piece, each component polished to a mirror shine that reflects not vanity, but professionalism. First comes the Zishage helmet, its distinctive comb-like crest marking me as a warrior of the Commonwealth. The metal is cool against my palm as I examine every rivet, every joint, checking for the hairline cracks that could mean death in battle. The nasal guard and cheek pieces must move smoothly. The neck protection must overlap correctly. And the plume socket must be secure enough to hold my ostrich feathers without wavering. The cuirass comes next. That masterwork of the armorer's art that has turned aside more Ottoman scimitar strikes than I care to count. The breastplate bears the dents and scratches of previous campaigns, each mark a testament to battles survived. Piotr helps me on the back plate, securing the straps with the practiced efficiency of long routine. The weight settles familiar across my shoulders and chest. Not burden but protection, not hindrance but strength. My arms require the most attention, for they must remain mobile enough to wield lance and saber with deadly precision. The spaulders covering my shoulders are articulated to allow full movement, while the arm guards protect my forearms without restricting the subtle wrist movements essential to mounted combat. Each piece connects to the next with perfect precision, creating an integrated defense that has been refined through centuries of Polish military engineering. But it is my weapons that truly define me as a hussar. My primary arm is the kopia, the long lance that stretches nearly 18 feet from butt to point. Carved from ashwood and perfectly balanced, it weighs surprisingly little for its length, yet when backed by the thunderous charge of a 1,000-pound Destrier moving at full gallop, it becomes irresistible force incarnate. The lance head is not simply sharp but perfectly shaped, designed to penetrate armor while remaining embedded long enough to lift an enemy from his saddle before breaking away cleanly. The saber at my side is a work of art that took a master smith in crack of 3 months to forge. Its curved blade can separate a man's head from his shoulders with a single stroke, while its intricate basket hilt protects my hand without impeding my grip. Every hussar carries a saber, for after the initial lance charge, close combat often devolves into a deadly dance of blade against blade. My pair of wheel-up pistols rest in holsters attached to my saddle, each one a masterpiece of German craftsmanship. These single-shot weapons may lack the reach of bow or lance, but at close quarters, their stopping power can punch through mail and lighter armor. More importantly, the psychological effect of firearms on enemy horses often proves as valuable as their physical damage to enemy riders. Completing my arsenal is a steel war hammer, its head shaped like an eagle's beak for punching through plate armor, and a misericord dagger for those intimate moments when quarter is neither asked nor given. Each weapon has been blessed by our chaplain and bears the tiny silver cross that marks it as the tool of righteous war. But what truly sets the hussar apart, what makes enemies tremble and allies cheer, are the wings. Mine are crafted from eagle feathers, each one selected for its size and perfection, arranged in a framework of steel and leather that attaches to the back of my armor. Almodain no easily instead in the stillet cannot rain short of my armor. When I ride to battle, these wings spread behind me like those of an avenging angel, creating a sound like thunder as they cut through the air. Some say the wings are mere pageantry, decoration to impress the common folk. They are fools who understand nothing of war's psychology. When 3,000 Polish horsemen crest a hill with wings spread wide, when the earth shakes beneath our Destrier's hooves, and the air fills with the sound of approaching doom, even the bravest enemy feels his courage falter. Fear is a weapon sharper than any blade, and the hussar's wings are fear made manifest. My horse Grom, which means thunder in Polish, awaits my attention with the patience that marks a true warhorse. He is a magnificent beast, standing 15 hands high, bred from the finest Polish and Tatar stock, through generations of careful selection. His bloodline can be traced back to the steppes of Asia, where his ancestors learned to run like the wind, while carrying armed warriors across vast distances. Grom's training began when he was barely 2 years old, but his education in the arts of war did not commence until his 5th birthday. Now at 9, he is in his prime, a perfectly conditioned athlete, capable of carrying my weight and armor across miles of rough terrain, then charging into battle with the fury of a thunderstorm. His coat gleams like polished bronze in the morning light, and his eyes hold the intelligent fire that marks a horse born for greatness. The relationship between a hussar and his destrier transcends mere partnership. It approaches the mystical. In battle, we become a single entity, my thoughts flowing through the reins to guide his movements, while his incredible strength and speed multiply my own capabilities 100-fold. A hussar without his horse is merely a man in fancy armor, but together we become something far greater than the sum of our parts. I run my hands along Grom's legs, checking for heat or swelling that might indicate injury. His hooves are inspected with particular care, for a stone in the wrong place could end our war before it properly begins. His tack receives the same meticulous attention as my armor, every strap examined, every buckle tested. The saddle, crafted in the Eastern style with its deep seat and high cantle, distributes weight perfectly, and provides the secure platform essential for lance combat. The morning inspection extends beyond my personal equipment to encompass my entire puck set, the small unit of retainers under my command. Each Hussar companion leads his own lance, typically consisting of 3 to 5 men, including the Towarzys himself. My puck set includes Piotr as my squire, Tomas as my standard bearer, and Władysław as my archer, each man essential to our effectiveness in battle. Tomas carries our banner, a silk rectangle emblazoned with the arms of my family, and blessed by the Archbishop of Krakow himself. In battle, this banner serves as our rallying point, a visible symbol of our unit's honor and fighting strength. To lose one's banner to the enemy brings shame that can stain a family name for generations, while to capture an enemy standard brings glory that echoes through the ages. Władysław, despite being a commoner from my estates near Krakow, shoots a bow with accuracy that would shame many a nobleman. His role in our formation involves providing covering fire during our approach and pursuing fleeing enemies after our charge breaks their lines. His mount is lighter than mine, bred for speed rather than the crushing impact that Grom delivers, but no less valuable to our success. The entire puck set moves with a coordinated precision that comes only from years of training together. We are not merely 4 men who happen to fight in proximity, but a military family bound by oaths of loyalty and mutual dependence. In battle, each man's survival depends upon the other's skill and courage, creating bonds stronger than those forged by blood alone. As the morning progresses, the camp comes fully alive with the controlled chaos of a professional army preparing for battle. Our banner, consisting of some 40 puck sets under the command of our Rotmisters, Captain Jerzy Lubomirski, represents merely one small part of King Jan Sobieski's great host. The sight of so many warriors in their magnificent armor, their horses stamping and snorting with barely contained energy, their weapons gleaming in the strengthening sunlight, fills my heart with fierce pride. The Winged Hussars represent the cream of Polish nobility, men who have chosen war as their profession and devoted their lives to perfecting its deadly arts. We are not conscripts dragged from their farms, nor mercenaries fighting for coin alone, but volunteers bound by honor and faith to defend Christendom against the Ottoman tide. Our very presence on this battlefield represents the flowering of centuries of military tradition and noble sacrifice. But we are not alone in this great enterprise. Infantry formations, their pikes gleaming like a forest of steel, provide the solid foundation upon which cavalry operations depend. Our artillery crews tend their bronze cannons with the loving care that soldiers reserve for weapons capable of breaking enemy formations from impossible distances. Light cavalry units, their horses dancing with nervous energy, scout the approaches and screen our movements from enemy observation. The morning meal, when it finally comes, is a simple affair befitting men who may not live to see another sunset. Black bread, cheese from the estates of Mazovia, and weak beer comprise the fare, supplemented by whatever provisions our foraging parties have been able to acquire from the Austrian countryside. Yet even this humble meal is consumed with the ceremony appropriate to warriors of our standing. Grace is offered by Father Marcin, our chaplain, a Jesuit priest whose learning equals his courage and whose sword arm rivals his scholarly achievements. His voice carries clearly across our assembled banner as he calls down God's blessing upon our food and our enterprise. Bless, O Lord, this food and these thy servants who are about to partake of it. Grant that, strengthened by this nourishment, we may serve thee faithfully and defend the weak and innocent from those who would do them harm. The words carry special weight on this morning, for we all know that tomorrow's dawn will likely see many of our number face the ultimate test of their faith and courage. Yet there is no fear in these faces, only the calm determination that marks professional soldiers who have made their peace with mortality. Death may come, but it will find us at our posts, faithful to our oaths and steadfast in our duty. Conversation during the meal turns naturally to the technical aspects of tomorrow's battle. The Turks have been besieging Vienna for over 2 months, their massive army estimated at well over 100,000 men. Our own force, while formidable, numbers perhaps 80,000 when all contingents are counted, placing us at a significant numerical disadvantage. Yet numbers alone do not win battles, as we proved so decisively at Kherson nearly 80 years ago. Captain Lubomirski shares intelligence gathered by our scouts during the night. The Turkish positions are strongly fortified, their lines extending in a great arc around the city's walls. Their cavalry, while numerous, consists primarily of light horsemen equipped for skirmishing rather than the type of shock action that Hussars specialize in delivering. Their janissaries, the Sultan's elite infantry, are formidable opponents but lack the mobility to respond quickly to unexpected developments. Most importantly, the enemy commander, Grand Vizier Kara Mustafa, appears to have focused his attention entirely on the siege operations, paying insufficient attention to the possibility of a relief force arriving from the west. This tactical oversight may provide the opening we need to achieve surprise, that most precious of military advantages. Our own plan, as explained by the captain, is elegantly simple in concept if complex in execution. The combined Christian army will deploy along the heights overlooking the Turkish positions, with infantry forming the center while cavalry masses on both flanks. At the appointed signal, the entire force will advance downhill, using gravity and momentum to multiply the impact of our charge. The role of the Winged Hussars in this grand design is both crucial and terrifying. We will form the spear point of the right wing, our task being to shatter the Turkish cavalry screen and then drive deep into their camp, creating chaos and confusion that will prevent organized resistance to the main assault. It is the type of mission that Hussars have trained for throughout our careers, yet none of us underestimates the dangers involved. As the day advances toward noon, training begins in earnest. Even veteran warriors must practice their skills constantly, for the difference between life and death in battle often comes down to split-second reactions that can only be perfected through endless repetition. Our exercises begin with individual horsemanship, each rider demonstrating his mastery of the subtle communications between man and beast that enable coordinated action in the chaos of combat. Mounted on Grom, I guide him through the intricate patterns that form the foundation of Hussar tactics. The turn, the half-turn, the wheel, the passage of lines. Each maneuver must be executed with precision, for in battle, a single mistake can disrupt an entire formation and lead to catastrophe. Grom responds to my slightest touch, his movements flowing like water as we dance through the complex choreography of mounted warfare. Lance practice follows, each rider taking turns, charging a series of straw targets while maintaining perfect formation. The kopia must strike precisely at the target center, penetrating cleanly without causing the rider to lose balance or fall behind his comrades. The sound of impact carries clearly across the field as lance point meets target, followed immediately by the crack of breaking ash as the lance head breaks away as designed. The weight of the lance requires careful management, for while its length provides reach, it also creates leverage that can easily unseat an unwary rider. The secret lies in gripping the weapon lightly, allowing it to move naturally with the horse's motion, while maintaining just enough control to direct its point accurately. At the moment of impact, the rider's entire body must absorb the shock, transferring the energy through his seat and stirrup leather into the horse beneath. Saber work demands a different set of skills entirely, for while the lance requires power and precision, the curved blade demands finesse and timing. Each cut must flow naturally from the horse's movement, using the animal's momentum to multiply the force delivered by the blade. The patterns we practice, cut 1, cut 2, thrust, parry, have been refined through generations of Polish swordsmanship, each motion designed to kill efficiently while maintaining balance in the saddle. Formation riding represents the culmination of Hussar training, for individual skill means nothing if it cannot be coordinated with one's comrades. Our banner practices the charge in waves, each rank following the one before at precisely calculated intervals. Too close together, and a falling horse can bring down multiple riders. Too far apart, and gaps appear in the formation that enemy infantry can exploit. The sound of 300 horsemen moving in perfect unison creates a rhythm that seems to match the very heartbeat of the earth itself. Hoofbeats drum against the ground, like thunder rolling across the plains, while the rustle of wings and the creak of leather provide a softer counterpoint to the martial symphony. This is the music of war, terrible and beautiful in equal measure. But our training encompasses more than mere technical proficiency. The psychological preparation for battle requires its own form of conditioning. For courage is not the absence of fear, but the mastery of it. We practice battle cries, our voices joining in the ancient Polish war shouts that have echoed across European battlefields for centuries. Jezus Maria and Za Polskin ring out across the training ground, each repetition strengthening the bonds of brotherhood that hold our formation together when death stalks the field. The afternoon brings time for equipment maintenance, that unglamorous but essential task that separates professional soldiers from mere armed rabble. Every piece of gear receives meticulous attention, from the smallest buckle to the largest armor plate. Rust is the enemy of the warrior, as deadly as any Turkish scimitar if left unchecked. Piotr and I work together to clean and oil every component of my harness, checking for loose rivets or worn straps that could fail at the crucial moment. The armor is polished not for appearance, but for function, since smooth metal deflects blows more effectively than rough surfaces. Each plate is examined carefully for the stress fractures that can develop gradually through repeated impacts and temperature changes. My weapons receive equal attention, their blades honed to razor sharpness with whetstones carried specifically for this purpose. The balance of each piece is tested carefully. For a weapon whose weight distribution has been altered by damage or poor maintenance becomes more liability than asset in combat. The pistols are cleaned and loaded fresh, their mechanisms checked for the smooth operation, essential to reliable ignition. Grom's care requires just as much attention as my own equipment. His hooves are cleaned and examined for stones or cracks, his shoes checked for looseness or wear. His coat is brushed until it gleams, not from vanity, but because a clean horse is a healthy horse, and any sign of disease or injury could compromise our effectiveness in battle. The tack receives particular scrutiny, for the failure of a single strap could prove catastrophic during a charge. Each piece of leather is flexed and examined for weak spots, while metal fittings are checked for proper attachment. The bit is cleaned thoroughly, since Grom's willingness to respond to my commands depends upon his comfort and the clarity of my signals through the reins. As evening approaches, the camp settles into the quieter rhythms of soldiers preparing for rest. Cooking fires begin to spring up throughout our lines, as each pockset prepares its evening meal, from whatever provisions have been distributed by the quartermaster. The aroma of roasting meat mingles with the smoke from countless fires, creating the distinctive scent that marks a military encampment. Our own meal is more elaborate than the morning's simple fare, befitting what may be our last night on earth. Tomas has somehow acquired a joint of beef from the supply train, while Władysław contributes turnips and onions foraged from nearby farms. Piotr tends the cooking fire with the skill born of 2 years' practice, turning the meat slowly to ensure even cooking while keeping the vegetables from burning. The conversation around our fire turns naturally to home and family, those ties that bind even the most professional soldier to the world beyond the camp. Tomas speaks of his wife and newborn son waiting in Lublin, their faces lighting his memory like candles in a dark room. Władysław tells stories of his village near Kraków, where the harvest should be beginning if the weather has held fair. I find my own thoughts drifting to the estates near Poznan that my family has held for 6 generations, where my steward manages affairs in my absence. The manor house with its thick walls and carved timbers, the fields where my peasants grow the grain that feeds my household, the chapel where my ancestors lie buried beneath carved stone effigies, all seem impossibly distant from this camp beside the Danube. Yet these connections to home and hearth provide more than mere comfort. They remind us why we fight. The Turkish advance threatens not merely our political independence, but our entire way of life. Should Vienna fall, the Ottoman tide will surge into the heart of Europe, bringing with it the destruction of everything we hold sacred. Our charge tomorrow defends more than just an Austrian city. It protects the very foundations of Christian civilization. Father Marchand conducts evening prayers for our banner, his voice carrying clearly through the gathering dusk as we kneel together on the trampled grass. The familiar Latin phrases wash over us like a blessing, connecting us to centuries of warriors who knelt thus before battle, seeking divine aid for the trials ahead. Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum. The words flow from memory, each repetition strengthening our resolve, and reminding us that we fight not alone, but with the saints and angels as our allies. The service concludes with a special blessing for our weapons and mounts. Father Marcin, sprinkling holy water on lance points and sword blades, while invoking God's protection for the tools of righteous war. Each Hussar leads his Destrier forward to receive the priest's touch, the great Warhorses standing quietly as if they too understand the solemnity of the moment. As full darkness settles over the camp, the more mundane tasks of military life continue. Sentries are posted around our perimeter, their watchful eyes scanning the darkness for any sign of Turkish infiltrators or spies. The password for tonight is Sobieski, our king's name serving as both identification and inspiration for any who might falter in their duty. Guards also patrol within the camp itself, ensuring that discipline is maintained, and that no man disappears into the night, either through cowardice or enemy action. Desertion before battle brings shame, not only upon the individual, but upon his entire family, a stain that can persist for generations. Yet among the Hussars, such failings are virtually unknown, for we are bound by bonds of honor, stronger than any chain. The evening also brings time for final preparations that cannot be accomplished during the busy daylight hours. Letters are written to families and loved ones, though whether they will ever be delivered depends upon tomorrow's outcome. Wills are composed or revised, ensuring that those who fall will be remembered, and that their dependents will not suffer want. These documents are entrusted to Father Marcin, who has sworn to see them delivered regardless of his own fate. Personal effects are sorted and arranged, with valuable items often distributed among comrades who might survive to carry them home. My own silver cross, inherited from my grandfather who fought the Swedes at Kirchholm, goes to Piotr with instructions to deliver it to my brother should I not return. Such preparations may seem morbid to civilian minds, but they provide essential peace of mind for warriors facing mortal danger. Weapons receive one final inspection by torchlight, each blade examined once more for any flaw that might have been missed during the afternoon's maintenance. Lance heads are tested for proper attachment to their shafts, while pistol mechanisms are checked yet again for smooth operation. In the harsh light of battle, there will be no opportunity for repairs or adjustments. Everything must function perfectly from the first moment of action. The camp gradually settles into the uneasy quiet that precedes battle, broken only by the occasional challenge of a sentry or the snort of a restless horse. Most men seek their blankets early, knowing that tomorrow will demand every ounce of strength and alertness they can muster. Yet sleep comes hard to minds focused on the approaching trial, and many lie awake staring at the stars while wrestling with their own mortality. I find myself drawn to check on Grom one final time, running my hands along his neck and speaking to him in the low, gentle tones that horses understand better than human words. He nuzzles my shoulder with the affection that grows between warrior and mount after years of shared dangers, his warm breath creating small clouds in the cooling air. Tomorrow, our lives will depend upon each other completely, and this quiet moment strengthens the bond that makes such trust possible. The last task of the day involves the careful arrangement of equipment for swift donning at dawn's first light. Armor is laid out in precise order, each piece positioned so that it can be put on quickly, even in darkness. Weapons are placed within easy reach, their familiar weight and balance providing comfort even in sleep. The great wings are folded carefully and wrapped in oiled cloth to protect their feathers from the morning dew. My prayers tonight are longer and more fervent than usual, as befits a man who may soon stand before his Maker. I commend my soul to God's keeping, while asking for strength and courage in the trials ahead. Most importantly, I pray for the success of our enterprise, that Christian Vienna might be delivered from the infidels' grasp, and that Europe might remain free beneath the cross of Christ. Holy Mary, Mother of God, Pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. The familiar words provide comfort as I finally settle beneath my blankets, knowing that whatever tomorrow brings, I have prepared as thoroughly as possible for the greatest test of my life. The sounds of the camp gradually fade into the background as exhaustion finally claims my consciousness. My last thought before sleep is of the morning that awaits, when 3,000 Polish horsemen will ride down from the heights like the very wrath of God, their wings spread wide, and their lances leveled against the enemies of the faith. It will be a sight to make angels weep and demons tremble, a moment that will echo through the corridors of time until the very end of days. As sleep takes hold, I dream of home and family, of peaceful fields beneath polished skies, of children playing in gardens where no Turkish footstep has ever fallen. These dreams sustain me through the dark hours, reminding me why we fight and what we defend. When dawn comes, I will rise ready to play my part in the greatest cavalry charge in human history, secure in the knowledge that I serve a cause greater than myself, and armed with faith stronger than steel. The morning will bring trumpets and banners, the thunder of hooves and the clash of arms, the moment when all our training and preparation culminates in those few decisive minutes that determine the fate of nations. But for now, there is only sleep and dreams, the blessed rest that prepares a warrior's body and soul for the trials that await with the rising sun. Tonight, like countless warriors before and since, I sleep with my sword beside me and my faith as my shield, ready to meet whatever dawn may bring with the courage that befits a son of Poland and a defender of Christendom. Tomorrow, God willing, the name of the Winged Hussars will be written in letters of gold across the pages of history, and the bells of Vienna will ring out in celebration of our victory. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the daily life of one of history's most magnificent warriors. If you enjoyed this intimate glimpse into the world of the Polish Winged Hussars, please like this video and subscribe for more historical adventures. Sleep well, and may your rest be as peaceful as the victory that followed this warrior's dawn, when Christian Europe stood firm against the tide of conquest, and the wings of the Hussars cast their shadows across the field of glory. Sweet dreams, and remember that even in our modern age, the courage and faith of warriors like Stanisław Kowalski continue to inspire those who defend the innocent and stand against the darkness that would engulf the world. Welcome to another peaceful journey through the corridors of time, dear friend. Before we begin tonight's exploration into the daily life of one of history's most magnificent warriors, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you find solace and understanding in these historical bedtime stories, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. It helps more people discover these gentle adventures through time, and it lets me know you're enjoying our nighttime wanderings through the tapestry of human history. Now settle in comfortably as we drift back to the year 1683, to the camp of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, where the morning mist rises from the fields outside Vienna, and the fate of Christian Europe hangs in the balance. Tonight, I invite you to live a day through the eyes of Stanisław Kowalski, a Polish Winged Hussar, a Towarzysz of noble blood, whose wings cast shadows of both beauty and terror across the battlefields of the 17th century. Close your eyes and let yourself become this proud warrior, feeling the weight of your armor, the power of your Destrier beneath you, and the sacred duty that courses through your veins like liquid fire. The first light of dawn breaks through the canvas of my tent, and I feel the familiar ache in my bones that comes from sleeping on campaign. It is September 11th, 1683, and tomorrow we shall ride to relieve the great city of Vienna from the Ottoman siege that has gripped it like the talons of a great eagle. But today, there's preparation, prayer, and the endless rituals that make a hussar more than merely a man on horseback. I rise before the trumpet sound, as is my custom. The pre-dawn hours belong to God and to reflection, and I have learned that a warrior who does not commune with the Almighty before battle often finds himself communing with death instead. My squire, young Piotr, still sleeps on his bedroll near the tent entrance, his hand instinctively resting on the hilt of his saber, even in slumber. He is barely 16, but already shows the bearing of a future hussar, if God wills it. and he survives the trials ahead. Kneeling on my camp rug, I begin my morning prayers as my father taught me, and his father before him. Poch mi vysisi dustagienki. I whisper, the ancient Polish words flowing like honey from my lips. But this morning, my prayers turn to Our Lady of Częstochowa, the Black Madonna who watches over all Polish warriors. Holy Mother of Częstochowa, thou art full of grace, goodness and mercy. I consecrate to thee all my thoughts, words and actions, my soul and body. Today I consecrate myself to thee, good Mother, totally with body and soul amid joy and sufferings, to obtain for myself and others thy blessings on this earth and eternal life in heaven. The weight of devotion settles upon my shoulders like a comfortable cloak. In these moments of prayer, I feel the presence of my ancestors, the great warriors who rode these same plains centuries before. Back to the time when Polish lances first gleamed in the morning sun, the Hussar tradition flows in my blood like a sacred river, connecting me to heroes whose names echo in the halls of eternity. As the camp begins to stir around me, I hear the familiar sounds of an army awakening. The snorting and stamping of horses, the clatter of equipment being prepared, the low murmur of men's voices carrying through the morning air. Someone is already building up the cooking fires, and the scent of burning wood mingles with the earthy smell of leather and steel that permeates every military camp. Piotr awakens at my movement and immediately begins his duties without need for instruction. A good squire anticipates his master's needs, and Piotr has learned well in the 2 years since he entered my service. His father was a szlachta from Kraków who died fighting the Turks at Szokim, and I have taken the boy under my protection as much from duty as from affection. In him, I see the future of our brotherhood. The morning inspection of my equipment is a ritual as sacred as prayer itself. My life, and the lives of my comrades, depend upon every piece of gear functioning perfectly. When the moment of battle arrives, Piotr brings my armor piece by piece, each component polished to a mirror shine that reflects not vanity, but professionalism. First comes the Zishage helmet, its distinctive comb-like crest marking me as a warrior of the Commonwealth. The metal is cool against my palm as I examine every rivet, every joint, checking for the hairline cracks that could mean death in battle. The nozzle guard and cheek pieces must move smoothly. The neck protection must overlap correctly. And the plume socket must be secure enough to hold my ostrich feathers without wavering. The cuirass comes next. That masterwork of the armorer's art that has turned aside more Ottoman scimitar strikes than I care to count. The breastplate bears the dents and scratches of previous campaigns, each mark a testament to battles survived. Piotr helps me on the back plate, securing the straps with the practiced efficiency of long routine. The weight settles familiar across my shoulders and chest. Not burden but protection, not hindrance but strength. My arms require the most attention, for they must remain mobile enough to wield lance and saber with deadly precision. The spaulders covering my shoulders are articulated to allow full movement, while the arm guards protect my forearms without restricting the subtle wrist movements essential to mounted combat. Each piece connects to the next with perfect precision, creating an integrated defense that has been refined through centuries of Polish military engineering. But it is my weapons that truly define me as a hussar. My primary arm is the kopia, the long lance that stretches nearly 18 feet from butt to point. Carved from ashwood and perfectly balanced, it weighs surprisingly little for its length, yet when backed by the thunderous charge of a 1,000-pound Destrier moving at full gallop, it becomes irresistible force incarnate. The lance head is not simply sharp but perfectly shaped, designed to penetrate armor while remaining embedded long enough to lift an enemy from his saddle before breaking away cleanly. The saber at my side is a work of art that took a master smith in Kraków 3 months to forge. Its curved blade can separate a man's head from his shoulders with a single stroke, while its intricate basket hilt protects my hand without impeding my grip. Every hussar carries a saber, for after the initial lance charge, close combat often devolves into a deadly dance of blade against blade. My pair of wheel-up pistols rest in holsters attached to my saddle, each one a masterpiece of German craftsmanship. Gun. These single-shot weapons may lack the reach of bow or lance, but at close quarters, their stopping power can punch through mail and lighter armor. More importantly, the psychological effect of firearms on enemy horses often proves as valuable as their physical damage to enemy riders. Completing my arsenal is a steel war hammer, its head shaped like an eagle's beak for punching through plate armor, and a misericord dagger for those intimate moments when quarter is neither asked nor given. Each weapon has been blessed by our chaplain and bears the tiny silver cross that marks it as a tool of righteous war. But what truly sets the Hussar apart, what makes enemies tremble and allies cheer, are the wings. Mine are crafted from eagle feathers, each one selected for its size and perfection, arranged in a framework of steel and leather that attaches to the back of my armor. Almolding no easily instead in a stirret cannot rain short of my armor. When I ride to battle, these wings spread behind me like those of an avenging angel, creating a sound like thunder as they cut through the air. Some say the wings are mere pageantry, decoration to impress the common folk. They are fools who understand nothing of war's psychology. When 3,000 Polish horsemen crest a hill with wings spread wide, when the earth shakes beneath our Destrier's hooves, and the air fills with the sound of approaching doom, even the bravest enemy feels his courage falter. Fear is a weapon sharper than any blade, and the Hussar's wings are fear made manifest. My horse Grom, which means thunder in Polish, awaits my attention with the patience that marks a true warhorse. He is a magnificent beast, standing 15 hands high, bred from the finest Polish and Tatar stock, through generations of careful selection. His bloodline can be traced back to the steppes of Asia, where his ancestors learned to run like the wind while carrying armed warriors across vast distances. Grom's training began when he was barely 2 years old, but his education in the arts of war did not commence until his 5th birthday. Now at 9, he's in his prime, a perfectly conditioned athlete capable of carrying my weight and armor across miles of rough terrain, then charging into battle with the fury of a thunderstorm. His coat gleams like polished bronze in the morning light, and his eyes hold the intelligent fire that marks a horse born for greatness. The relationship between a Hussar and his Destrier transcends mere partnership. It approaches the mystical. In battle, we become a single entity, my thoughts flowing through the reins to guide his movements, while his incredible strength and speed multiply my own capabilities 100-fold. A Hussar without his horse is merely a man in fancy armor, but together we become something far greater than the sum of our parts. I run my hands along Grom's legs, checking for heat or swelling that might indicate injury. His hooves are inspected with particular care, for a stone in the wrong place could end our war before it properly begins. His tack receives the same meticulous attention as my armor, every strap examined, every buckle tested. The saddle, crafted in the Eastern style with its deep seat and high cantle, distributes weight perfectly and provides the secure platform essential for lance combat. The morning inspection extends beyond my personal equipment to encompass my entire puck set, the small unit of retainers under my command. Each Hussar companion leads his own lance, typically consisting of 3 to 5 men, including the Towarzys himself. My puck set includes Piotr as my squire, Tomas as my standard bearer, and Władysław as my archer, each man essential to our effectiveness in battle. Tomas carries our banner, a silk rectangle emblazoned with the arms of my family, and blessed by the Archbishop of Krakow himself. In battle, this banner serves as our rallying point, a visible symbol of our unit's honor and fighting strength. To lose one's banner to the enemy brings shame that can stain a family name for generations, while to capture an enemy standard brings glory that echoes through the ages. Władysław, despite being a commoner from my estates near Krakow, shoots a bow with accuracy that would shame many a nobleman. His role in our formation involves providing covering fire during our approach and pursuing fleeing enemies after our charge breaks their lines. His mount is lighter than mine, bred for speed rather than the crushing impact that Grom delivers, but no less valuable to our success. The entire puck set moves with a coordinated precision that comes only from years of training together. We are not merely 4 men who happen to fight in proximity, but a military family bound by oaths of loyalty and mutual dependence. In battle, Each man's survival depends upon the other's skill and courage, creating bonds stronger than those forged by blood alone. As the morning progresses, the camp comes fully alive with the controlled chaos of a professional army preparing for battle. Our banner, consisting of some 40 poxets under the command of our rotmisters, Captain Jerzy Lubomirski, represents merely one small part of King Jan Sobieski's great host. The sight of so many warriors in their magnificent armor, their horses stamping and snorting with barely contained energy, their weapons gleaming in the strengthening sunlight, fills my heart with fierce pride. The Winged Hussars represent the cream of Polish nobility, men who have chosen war as their profession and devoted their lives to perfecting its deadly arts. We are not conscripts dragged from their farms, nor mercenaries fighting for coin alone, but volunteers bound by honor and faith to defend Christendom against the Ottoman tide. Our very presence on this battlefield represents the flowering of centuries of military tradition and noble sacrifice. But we are not alone in this great enterprise. Infantry formations, their pikes gleaming like a forest of steel, provide the solid foundation upon which cavalry operations depend. Our artillery crews tend their bronze cannons with the loving care that soldiers reserve for weapons capable of breaking enemy formations from impossible distances. Light cavalry units, their horses dancing with nervous energy, scout the approaches and screen our movements from enemy observation. The morning meal, when it finally comes, is a simple affair befitting men who may not live to see another sunset. Black bread, cheese from the estates of Mazovia, and wheat beer comprise the fare, supplemented by whatever provisions our foraging parties have been able to acquire from the Austrian countryside. Yet even this humble meal is consumed with the ceremony appropriate to warriors of our standing. Grace is offered by Father Marcin, our chaplain, a Jesuit priest whose learning equals his courage and whose sword arm rivals his scholarly achievements. His voice carries clearly across our assembled banner as he calls down God's blessing upon our food and our enterprise. Bless, O Lord, this food and these thy servants who are about to partake of it. Grant that, strengthened by this nourishment, we may serve thee faithfully and defend the weak and innocent from those who would do them harm. The words carry special weight on this morning, for we all know that tomorrow's dawn will likely see many of our number face the ultimate test of their faith and courage. Yet there is no fear in these faces, only the calm determination that marks professional soldiers who have made their peace with mortality. Death may come, but it will find us at our posts, faithful to our oaths and steadfast in our duty. Conversation during the meal turns naturally to the technical aspects of tomorrow's battle. The Turks have been besieging Vienna for over 2 months, their massive army estimated at well over 100,000 men. Our own force, while formidable, numbers perhaps 80,000 when all contingents are counted, placing us at a significant numerical disadvantage. Yet numbers alone do not win battles, as we proved so decisively at Kherson nearly 80 years ago. Captain Lubomirski shares intelligence gathered by our scouts during the night. The Turkish positions are strongly fortified, their lines extending in a great arc around the city's walls. Their cavalry, while numerous, consists primarily of light horsemen equipped for skirmishing rather than the type of shock action that Hussars specialize in delivering. Their janissaries, the Sultan's elite infantry, are formidable opponents but lack the mobility to respond quickly to unexpected developments. Most importantly, the enemy commander, Grand Vizier Kara Mustafa, appears to have focused his attention entirely on the siege operations, paying insufficient attention to the possibility of a relief force arriving from the west. This tactical oversight may provide the opening we need to achieve surprise, that most precious of military advantages. Our own plan, as explained by the captain, is elegantly simple in concept if complex in execution. The combined Christian army will deploy along the heights overlooking the Turkish positions, with infantry forming the center while cavalry masses on both flanks. At the appointed signal, the entire force will advance downhill, using gravity and momentum to multiply the impact of our charge. The role of the Winged Hussars in this grand design is both crucial and terrifying. We will form the spear point of the right wing, our task being to shatter the Turkish cavalry screen and then drive deep into their camp, creating chaos and confusion that will prevent organized resistance to the main assault. It is the type of mission that Hussars have trained for throughout our careers, yet none of us underestimates the dangers involved. As the day advances toward noon, training begins in earnest. Even veteran warriors must practice their skills constantly, for the difference between life and death in battle often comes down to split-second reactions that can only be perfected through endless repetition. Our exercises begin with individual horsemanship, each rider demonstrating his mastery of the subtle communications between man and beast that enable coordinated action in the chaos of combat. Mounted on Grom, I guide him through the intricate patterns that form the foundation of Hussar tactics. The turn, the half-turn, the wheel, the passage of lines. Each maneuver must be executed with precision, for in battle, a single mistake can disrupt an entire formation and lead to catastrophe. Grom responds to my slightest touch, his movements flowing like water as we dance through the complex choreography of mounted warfare. Lance practice follows, each rider taking turns, charging a series of straw targets while maintaining perfect formation. The copia must strike precisely at the target center, penetrating cleanly without causing the rider to lose balance or fall behind his comrades. The sound of impact carries clearly across the field as lance point meets target, followed immediately by the crack of breaking ash as the lance head breaks away as designed. The weight of the lance requires careful management, for while its length provides reach, it also creates leverage that can easily unseat an unwary rider. The secret lies in gripping the weapon lightly, allowing it to move naturally with the horse's motion, while maintaining just enough control to direct its point accurately. At the moment of impact, the rider's entire body must absorb the shock, transferring the energy through his seat and stirrup leather into the horse beneath. Saber work demands a different set of skills entirely, for while the lance requires power and precision, the curved blade demands finesse and timing. Each cut must flow naturally from the horse's movement, using the animal's momentum to multiply the force delivered by the blade. The patterns we practice, cut 1, cut 2, thrust, parry, have been refined through generations of Polish swordsmanship, each motion designed to kill efficiently while maintaining balance in the saddle. Formation riding represents the culmination of Hussar training, for individual skill means nothing if it cannot be coordinated with one's comrades. Our banner practices the charge in waves, each rank following the one before at precisely calculated intervals. Too close together, and a falling horse can bring down multiple riders. Too far apart, and gaps appear in the formation that enemy infantry can exploit. The sound of 300 horsemen moving in perfect unison creates a rhythm that seems to match the very heartbeat of the earth itself. Hoofbeats drum against the ground, like thunder rolling across the plains, while the rustle of wings and the creak of leather provide a softer counterpoint to the martial symphony. This is the music of war, terrible and beautiful in equal measure. But our training encompasses more than mere technical proficiency. The psychological preparation for battle requires its own form of conditioning. For courage is not the absence of fear, but the mastery of it. We practice battle cries, our voices joining in the ancient Polish war shouts that have echoed across European battlefields for centuries. Jezus Maria and Za Polskin ring out across the training ground, each repetition strengthening the bonds of brotherhood that hold our formation together when death stalks the field. The afternoon brings time for equipment maintenance, that unglamorous but essential task that separates professional soldiers from mere armed rebel. Every piece of gear receives meticulous attention, from the smallest buckle to the largest armor plate. Rust is the enemy of the warrior, as deadly as any Turkish scimitar if left unchecked. Piotr and I work together to clean and oil every component of my harness, checking for loose rivets or worn straps that could fail at the crucial moment. The armor is polished not for appearance, but for function, since smooth metal deflects blows more effectively than rough surfaces. Each plate is examined carefully for the stress fractures that can develop gradually through repeated impacts and temperature changes. My weapons receive equal attention, their blades honed to razor sharpness with whetstones carried specifically for this purpose. The balance of each piece is tested carefully, For a weapon whose weight distribution has been altered by damage or poor maintenance becomes more liability than asset in combat. The pistols are cleaned and loaded fresh, their mechanisms checked for the smooth operation, essential to reliable ignition. Grom's care requires just as much attention as my own equipment. His hooves are cleaned and examined for stones or cracks, his shoes checked for looseness or wear. His coat is brushed until it gleams, not from vanity, but because a clean horse is a healthy horse, and any sign of disease or injury could compromise our effectiveness in battle. The tack receives particular scrutiny, for the failure of a single strap could prove catastrophic during a charge. Each piece of leather is flexed and examined for weak spots, while metal fittings are checked for proper attachment. The bit is cleaned thoroughly, since Grom's willingness to respond to my commands depends upon his comfort and the clarity of my signals through the reins. As evening approaches, the camp settles into the quieter rhythms of soldiers preparing for rest. Cooking fires begin to spring up throughout our lines as each pockset prepares its evening meal from whatever provisions have been distributed by the quartermaster. The aroma of roasting meat mingles with the smoke from countless fires, creating the distinctive scent that marks a military encampment. Our own meal is more elaborate than the morning's simple fare, befitting what may be our last night on earth. Tomas has somehow acquired a joint of beef from the supply train, while Władysław contributes turnips and onions foraged from nearby farms. Piotr tends the cooking fire with the skill born of 2 years' practice, turning the meat slowly to ensure even cooking while keeping the vegetables from burning. The conversation around our fire turns naturally to home and family, those ties that bind even the most professional soldier to the world beyond the camp. Tomas speaks of his wife and newborn son waiting in Lublin, their faces lighting his memory like candles in a dark room. Władysław tells stories of his village near Kraków, where the harvest should be beginning if the weather has held fair. I find my own thoughts drifting to the estates near Poznań that my family has held for 6 generations, where my steward manages affairs in my absence. The manor house with its thick walls and carved timbers, the fields where my peasants grow the grain that feeds my household, the chapel where my ancestors lie buried beneath carved stone effigies, all seem impossibly distant from this camp beside the Danube. Yet these connections to home and hearth provide more than mere comfort. They remind us why we fight. The Turkish advance threatens not merely our political independence, but our entire way of life. Should Vienna fall, the Ottoman tide will surge into the heart of Europe, bringing with it the destruction of everything we hold sacred. Our charge tomorrow defends more than just an Austrian city. It protects the very foundations of Christian civilization. Father Marchand conducts evening prayers for our banner, his voice carrying clearly through the gathering dusk as we kneel together on the trampled grass. The familiar Latin phrases wash over us like a blessing, connecting us to centuries of warriors who knelt thus before battle, seeking divine aid for the trials ahead. Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum. The words flow from memory, each repetition strengthening our resolve, and reminding us that we fight not alone, but with the saints and angels as our allies. The service concludes with a special blessing for our weapons and mounts. Father Marcin, sprinkling holy water on lance points and sword blades, while invoking God's protection for the tools of righteous war. Each Hussar leads his Destrier forward to receive the priest's touch, the great Warhorses standing quietly as if they too understand the solemnity of the moment. As full darkness settles over the camp, the more mundane tasks of military life continue. Sentries are posted around our perimeter, their watchful eyes scanning the darkness for any sign of Turkish infiltrators or spies. The password for tonight is Sobieski, our king's name serving as both identification and inspiration for any who might falter in their duty. Guards also patrol within the camp itself, ensuring that discipline is maintained, and that no man disappears into the night, either through cowardice or enemy action. Desertion before battle brings shame, not only upon the individual, but upon his entire family, a stain that can persist for generations. Yet among the Hussars, such failings are virtually unknown, for we are bound by bonds of honor, stronger than any chain. The evening also brings time for final preparations that cannot be accomplished during the busy daylight hours. Letters are written to families and loved ones, though whether they will ever be delivered depends upon tomorrow's outcome. Wills are composed or revised, ensuring that those who fall will be remembered, and that their dependents will not suffer want. These documents are entrusted to Father Massin, who has sworn to see them delivered regardless of his own fate. Personal effects are sorted and arranged, with valuable items often distributed among comrades who might survive to carry them home. My own silver cross, inherited from my grandfather who fought the Swedes at Kirchholm, goes to Piotr with instructions to deliver it to my brother should I not return. Such preparations may seem morbid to civilian minds, but they provide essential peace of mind for warriors facing mortal danger. Weapons receive one final inspection by torchlight, each blade examined once more for any flaw that might have been missed during the afternoon's maintenance. Lance heads are tested for proper attachment to their shafts, while pistol mechanisms are checked yet again for smooth operation. In the harsh light of battle, there will be no opportunity for repairs or adjustments. Everything must function perfectly from the first moment of action. The camp gradually settles into the uneasy quiet that precedes battle, broken only by the occasional challenge of a sentry or the snort of a restless horse. Most men seek their blankets early, knowing that tomorrow will demand every ounce of strength and alertness they can muster. Yet sleep comes hard to minds focused on the approaching trial, and many lie awake staring at the stars while wrestling with their own mortality. I find myself drawn to check on Grom one final time, running my hands along his neck and speaking to him in the low, gentle tones that horses understand better than human words. He nuzzles my shoulder with the affection that grows between warrior and mount, after years of shared dangers, his warm breath creating small clouds in the cooling air. Tomorrow, our lives will depend upon each other completely, and this quiet moment strengthens the bond that makes such trust possible. The last task of the day involves the careful arrangement of equipment for swift donning at dawn's first light. Armor is laid out in precise order, each piece positioned so that it can be put on quickly, even in darkness. Weapons are placed within easy reach, their familiar weight and balance providing comfort even in sleep. The great wings are folded carefully and wrapped in oiled cloth to protect their feathers from the morning dew. My prayers tonight are longer and more fervent than usual, as befits a man who may soon stand before his Maker. I commend my soul to God's keeping, while asking for strength and courage in the trials ahead. Most importantly, I pray for the success of our enterprise, that Christian Vienna might be delivered from the infidels' grasp, and that Europe might remain free beneath the cross of Christ. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. The familiar words provide comfort as I finally settle beneath my blankets, knowing that whatever tomorrow brings, I have prepared as thoroughly as possible for the greatest test of my life. The sounds of the camp gradually fade into the background as exhaustion finally claims my consciousness. My last thought before sleep is of the morning that awaits, when 3,000 Polish horsemen will ride down from the heights like the very wrath of God, their wings spread wide, and their lances leveled against the enemies of the faith. It will be a sight to make angels weep and demons tremble, a moment that will echo through the corridors of time until the very end of days. As sleep takes hold, I dream of home and family, of peaceful fields beneath polished skies, of children playing in gardens where no Turkish footstep has ever fallen. These dreams sustain me through the dark hours, reminding me why we fight and what we defend. When dawn comes, I will rise ready to play my part in the greatest cavalry charge in human history, secure in the knowledge that I serve a cause greater than myself, and armed with faith stronger than steel. The morning will bring trumpets and banners, the thunder of hooves and the clash of arms, the moment when all our training and preparation culminates in those few decisive minutes that determine the fate of nations. But for now, there is only sleep and dreams, the blessed rest that prepares a warrior's body and soul for the trials that await with the rising sun. Tonight, like countless warriors before and since, I sleep with my sword beside me and my faith as my shield. ready to meet whatever dawn may bring with the courage that befits a son of Poland and a defender of Christendom. Tomorrow, God willing, the name of the Winged Hussars will be written in letters of gold across the pages of history, and the bells of Vienna will ring out in celebration of our victory. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the daily life of one of history's most magnificent warriors. If you enjoyed this intimate glimpse into the world of the Polish Winged Hussars, please like this video and subscribe for more historical adventures. Sleep well, and may your rest be as peaceful as the victory that followed this warrior's dawn, when Christian Europe stood firm against the tide of conquest, and the wings of the Hussars cast their shadows across the field of glory. Sweet dreams, and remember that even in our modern age, the courage and faith of warriors like Stanisław Kowalski continue to inspire those who defend the innocent and stand against the darkness that would engulf the world.